Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing today? It's a magnificent day as always, and we are here to learn how to use the Navy. So the Navy has always been this sort of enigma to players, right? Everybody goes, "How do I use the Navy, man? I don't know." Right? And so I'm here to ease your worries. So let's get on it. So first thing you're gonna want to do is research things, and depending on whether you have the DOC man the cannons, or I forgot what the name is exactly, but it's a DOC that essentially revamps the Navy. You're either gonna see what I'm seeing, or you're only gonna see the early, basic, improved, advanced variation of all the ship designs, right? If you don't have the DOC, basically all you need to know about this thing is you just have to research each thing and you just get it, and then you can improve it with Naval XP by going to your production, clicking on it, and then clicking this button here, and you should be able to upgrade it with your XP like so. And that's how that works, right? But if you do have the XP, you're gonna want to upgrade it, research things. So there's two different types of things you can research that I think. You've got passive upgrades and you've got active upgrades. So a passive upgrade would be like smoke generators, where it's just a passive bonus, right? Your fleet speed or trading is increased by 20%, right? And that's just a passive upgrade, right? Whereas a more real upgrade would be like here in naval support, where you would with these things, right? Like you unlock like a new ship module, right? And that's it can be an improvement. They usually do have some sort of con. So for example, this one will slow you down by 3%, but it also has like a higher light attack and light pen. And yeah, so those are the two things you can research and obviously upgrade to your own desire, right? So let me explain the naval tree now. So now that you've designed whatever ship you like, you like bonuses. A quick little thing though when it comes to designing ships. Obviously prioritize. Each ship is going to have a different priority and different specialties that they have. So submarines should be quick. They should have good range. They should have decent organization, decent reliability, and a really good torpedo attack. That's really all you need to care about, right? And that's all really you can do is you can increase the speed, make sure sub visibility is always low. Remember your priorities with submarines are that are quick. They should attack heavy, and they should be able to come and go, and you should be able to produce a lot of them quickly, right? So sometimes whether you want to produce a lot of a thing is really dependent on what you're going to use them for, right? So submarines are probably a very good investment, right? You maybe want to make them decently cheap to produce, which you can see down here, only because you need a lot of them in order to really be effective in terms of a combat force, right? Having a lot of heavy duty big boy submarines is great, but if you don't have a lot of them, then there's not too much usage to them, right? And the same sort of concept applies to destroyers and cruisers, where you should have a lot of them, right? They should comprise the majority of your fleet. You need them to be quick, to have decent range, right? You can't have all of them, right? It's like the three switches. If you switch one, you can't have the other one, right? Something like that, right? Make sure that they're reliable, they have good org, and they have decent range and speed, right? Again, it really depends on what your fleet is going to be using and what your geographic situation looks like, right? Like if you're the UK, right, you don't need to prioritize fuel in terms of distance that your ships can travel, because you have so many ports, right, that you can really just move your fleet willy-nilly as you will, right? So a lot of the naval tree isn't just in contrast with the army, I think it's not really dependent on your on the tree itself and the technology, right? It's really dependent also on your country, right? So if you have this giant empire that the United Kingdom has in 1939, obviously distance isn't really a priority because you have so many ports, right? So again, it's also dependent on that as well. And also remember, so cruisers you should have less cruisers than you have destroyers. Destroyers are going to be able to destroy submarines via depth charges, and they're also going to be able to lay down mines, which is also really important, and I'll explain why. So when you're at war, right, and you have your destroyers, they have the capability to lay mines, you're going to essentially be able to, left click any province, right, that you want them to go to. Think about it like the army, right? They're able to go into any province, and it's the same concept with the Navy. It's sort of divided into small little grids, and you're going to be able to mine lay, and that'll basically add a penalty to any navies in the area. It'll be passive damage. It's a good investment, right? And the AI has a horrible track record of dealing with mines, so it's a good investment again, right? And cruisers are meant for more supporting roles, right? You want to make sure they're strong. You won't have as many of them, but they're good. And heavy ships are obviously like really important. You want these to be really heavily equipped. You know, again, it's a game of balance, but you want these guys to be strong. And remember to either prioritize anti-air or have an air force, because planes can attack, and there are naval bombers, right? You can see right here, it's a naval bomber. It is going to pack a huge punch, right? So unless you have a air force that's really able to project superiority over like anywhere you need to be, and you really want to, you know, be sort of, you know, constantly managing that, I would recommend that you add anti-air to any ships that you can, so you don't have to worry too much about you know, that being an issue. And obviously carriers are also really important, because carriers are able to carry planes, right? So let me give you an example. I don't believe I have any carriers on Germany, so I take that back. But the basic idea is you'll be able to land airplanes on them. They act as like mini airfields, and you're able to project power. And in naval battles, any airplanes that are in the carrier are going to be able to help out. So let me give you an example. Let me declare war on Poland as Germany, so the Allies will get involved. Let me just like squadiddle an army real quick, because this does not really matter. Boom, 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 and then, you know, you'll be able to just swing on by, and then obviously we need to hold we need to hold these guys before we get our asses handed to us. There we go. So now war should break out, and then obviously we'll recognize Bulgaria claims, because sure, whatever. Okay, so now like we have the Navy, so make sure obviously to separate your submarines from your the rest of your fleet, because submarines serve a completely different role, right? Submarines should be sinking, you know, convoys. And a quick way to check, you know, what your, you know, trade looks like is by going to, you know, clicking R or clicking trade. So let's say I buy something from Colombia. Let's buy something from Colombia. You'll see that it hasn't appeared just yet, but you'll be able to see that there's going to be a little line like this, exactly like this line that connects me and the person that I'm trading with, right? And yeah, like this is connected to this. It's sort of like supply, right? Where you're able to see, yeah, this blue line represents trade, and since I'm trading, were that line to ever be severed, I wouldn't be able to get those resources anymore, right? And the way convoys work is you're able to raid those lines and steal those convoys, and, you know, sink them, and, you know, and make sure that their resources don't get to their intended target. And that's kind of the point of submarines, right? You want these guys to be plentiful, you know, raiding. So I'll give you an example, right? So the UK is probably going to get is going to be heavily dependent on imports, right? It just is, frankly, right? And so you're going to be able to see that I am going to be able to rate them. So if I, you know, click here, have my fleet, make sure as well, you know, admirals are extraordinarily important. Each admiral it's like the same thing with generals, essentially. They've got very different, you know, skills. Some of them are better at naval damage than others. Some of them have better naval defense, fleet coordination. So fleet coordination is just organization. So think about it like an army organization. And then fleet speed while retreating. So unfortunately, you're not going to win all your battles, and you're going to be able to withdraw. Whether you do manually or automatically, it's up to you, obviously. But you're going to be able to, you know, they're going to be able to pull out quicker without taking as much damage, right? Because retreating takes a minute. And so you're going to be like, you know, getting blown up while you are trying to run away. So for, you know, for Germany especially, you kind of have like a dude meant for submarine attacks, Mr. Karl Donetz. And obviously for the service fleet, you're going to have the GOAT, Eric Raida. So yeah, your surface fleet will look different, obviously, depending on what you have. The AI has got a decent enough, like obviously make your task force custom. So the way you can do this is click merge. And once you click merge, you'll be able to click select, and then if you like left click whatever you want, you're going to be able to create that into a custom task force. So make sure that those are being made. Another quick thing is make sure that your basic heavy, you know, your like more valuable ships, like your heavy ships, your heavy ships, so your pride of the fleet. Make sure those are constantly like surrounded by other ships, cruisers, destroyers, you know, because they each serve a role and they all support each other. So think about it like a pyramid, right? At the top, you've got your destroyers, you've got your heavy destroyers, your aircraft carriers, and those are like, the top of the fleet. You're not gonna have as many of them, but they're valuable, right? Heavy destroyers are, heavy ships are able to do huge amounts of damage, right? You don't have too many of them, but you can, have huge amount of damage. Basic carriers are going to be able to deploy airplanes, right? So let's get into a naval battle real quick, and let me show you. So you're going to left click on basically any areas you want them to patrol in. If you're going to do a naval invasion, you're going to need them to have, complete support or complete control of the area. And up here, you're going to be able to see, you're going to be able to see their aggressiveness, right? So that just means like how, what sort of conditions need to be met in order for them to engage, right? If you have them to do not engage, they will never engage. They will constantly stay at port, no fun, no. If you have engage at low risk, they will attack, when it's like almost a guaranteed victory. Engage at medium risk, they'll be able to, if they're equal, they're a little bit higher, they'll go for it. And engage at high risk is stupid because they will take like 3-to-1 battles, which is ridiculous. And always engage, which was they will always engage, whether it's one ship or the whole fleet. We're going at it, boys. So I always like to keep it at medium range, or not medium risk. And repair priority is also really important because your ships will get damaged, whether in training, which you can do by clicking here. Which you should do, by the way, before, like years before, like a war, get them trained, get them good, it's a good bonuses. You can either get them to repair immediately if they take like a single, if they take damage right away, head back to port, or, again, same concept. Automatic split off is a little more interesting because what that means is that your ships will return back to port one by one if they're damaged. So if your ship gets attacked, let's say you got your fleet, let's say your carrier gets damaged a little bit, it'll return to fleet by itself and it'll leave the rest of the fleet to continue doing its job, which can be good and bad because again, your fleet will get weaker, but it'll be able to keep doing its job. So it's really dependent on what you're doing. Automatic reinforcement is also important because when you produce ships, they will go into here, the reserve fleet, and this is basically just saying like, are we allowed to like get ships from that, reserve fleet here in order to like fill in gaps. Like if we have 5 ships in reserve, we lose one, it'll take one of the ships in the reserve fleet and it'll move it in to fill it in its place. Distribute ships and balance task forces basically just makes it like even. So I click it, it'll be like semi-even. Yeah, like all the destroyers are in one thing, all the cruisers are another. Like it's AI, it's AI made separating basically. And then this button will just like move everything to the reserve fleet. So now everything is here. And then obviously if I want to bring it back, I will do so like that. And that's basically it. So let's go with the AI, nonsense just for the sake of, I did that wrong. Let's just go with the AI nonsense just to kind of show you what it'll look like. And then let's make a new theater just to kind of show you. So now it's like easier to manage. You would do that typically when you're like the fleets are meant for different things. So let's say I had an Atlantic fleet versus like a Mediterranean fleet. I would separate them to make it a little easier when it comes to organizing. And then again, you can also like when you're producing it, you can also click here and you'll be able to like decide where it goes in terms of that. And you can also, if you really want to be like really cool about it, you can click this, and this is like your task force. So all this is basically saying like what ships should be in this task force. And if you put it to like 10, you can kind of put whatever you want, like support ships, repair ships, like cruisers, like whatever, and it'll do it automatically that way. Like it's the same concept as with like the automatic reinforcement, except it goes straight into the fleet. It doesn't have to go to the reserve fleet and like go about that. So it's a little quicker, but it does require a little bit of micromanaging. Yeah. Okay, now let's battle, baby. So I've got my fleet here. This is the surface fleet. We can get them if we get them to park somewhere real quick. Denmark is trading. The Japanese want a boom, boom, boom. So okay, you left click, and these are the areas of operation. They'll be highlighted, and you're able to do a couple things. So patrol is the patrol is an interesting concept, and I'll explain why. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit more of explanation. It's not as easy to explain. So what patrol is patrol will you'll send your fleet out, whatever is highlighted. So I've got the entire fleet highlighted, but if I were to do this, and this, it would be it'd be a smaller cut of the fleet that's going to be sent out to do the task, right? So what I recommend doing, right? So patrol, you'll send out whatever you've got highlighted. So it'll, I've got 8 here, whatever, the rest of the fleet's there, right? I've got this highlighted. It'll send that to go patrol. And that just means it'll go wander around and try to find an enemy fleet, right? So this is where it gets cool. This is where it's kind of kooky. So, you know, once they find a patrol fleet, once they find another fleet, via patrolling, this will come into play, right? If you've got high tolerance for risk, it will immediately engage and it'll send for the other fleets to come help, right? So what I recommend doing is you have a smaller fleet sent out patrolling. So this is a really bad sort of task force for this, right? Destroyers, and maybe I could have a little more submarines and like a little more heat, right? Because this is going to be the sort of the thing that spots the fleet, and then it'll call for the rest of the fleet to help. So let's have them on patrol. And yeah, so they are now going to be patrolling, right? So now the rest of your fleet, I'm going to pretend this is like the meat of my fleet, right? Like the big boys. You want these guys on strike force. So what that means is they're going to sit on port. They're going to sit on their asses. They're not going to be in danger. They're going to sit on their asses, right? And they're going to wait until you find an enemy fleet. So if we let them, work its magic. Yeah, sure. Am I even winning this against Poland? I don't think I am. Am I? I'm actually confused. Am I winning against Poland? Oh, I am. Beautiful. But yeah, so we'll let we'll let our fleet cook, right? So they're going to be patrolling, and the more ships you have in an area, the higher naval superiority you're going to have, and you can affect that with airplanes, right? If you have airplanes patrolling the area, like air superiority, close air support, like they'll be able to help in battles, strike ports, strike enemy ships, or they can scout, right? The more planes you have in an area, the more they're going to be able to spot guys because they're going to be patrolling essentially, right? And then obviously if it's red, it's there's a heavy naval presence there. So yeah, look, okay, so we've spotted a fleet, right? We're we're locating, and then now, yeah. So yeah, now the big navy has pulled out of port, and they are going to help. Yeah, so they're locating a ship. All right, god damn it. They're locating a ship, right? They think they found something, right? And they lost the ship. They're going to continue their patrolling over here now, but we know that there's a fleet here, right? Because we can kind of see them, right? They're like causing chaos essentially, right? But yeah, so when now they're engaged in combat, and now this fleet immediately was sent out to go interfere, and now this is how it looks. This is the combat menu. So up here we've got disengage. It's essentially retreating, right? You fall back. So yeah, this is so let me explain how this combat works, right? So on the bottom here are the submarine wolf packs, right? These are your submarines. Yeah, they're going to be down here is like, you're losing, ships or whatever, right? So right here, you've got your submarine wolf packs. They are going to be attempting to finish off ships that are leaving because they're damaged, which you can, that'll be decided by this, whether they leave. And so, that's, a good thing is to have submarines in your main fleet composition for that reason, right? Excuse me. And if you don't have any anti-submarine vessels like destroyers, they're going to be able to not get attacked at all, because only destroyers or anything with depth charges or any sort of anti-submarine technology are going to be able to attack them, right? Which is interesting. And then up here, this is the screening groups, all right? Light cruisers and destroyers. So your main battle line is here. These are your big boy ships, right? Your destroyers, your heavy ships, right? HMS York, whatever, right? Admiral Hipper, whatever, right? These are your big boys, right? These two are going to be thugging at them, just shooting at each other, right? But how it works is it's like line combat, right? So these guys are going to be attacking each other, right? And then once they're defeated, then then the battle goes from here to here, and then to here. It's basically like a level defense system, right? So if I'm gonna lose this, obviously, because this is just 8, 2, 1, 20. Yeah, I'm gonna lose this. I'm gonna lose the fuck out of this battle. But were I to win, I would defeat their line and then go to here and then to here, right? So let's let this battle play out, right? So you're noticing that ships are leaving, right? These ships are escaping, right? They're damaged and they're disengaging. They're returning back to port to get repaired, or depending on your stats, anything could be happening, right? And you'll notice that my ships, I lost this battle, right? It was a victory, right? Because I did destroy more ships than they did, but my ships are damaged, right? But the basic idea is, they're repairing now. The basic idea is it's a multi-layered defense system, right? Your screens will be attacked, destroyed, and then your other ships, and then your other ships, and that's it, right? And that decides a battle, right? And then I think did we just capture a commander? We managed to overrun. The Polish commander has now been transferred to Kaukatis. Where the fuck is that? But that's the basic idea, right? And in terms of, now we get into naval command. So like the spirit of your navy doesn't really matter, because like any major country starts off with like a big navy, right? So like this is more important if you don't like have a navy. If you don't have a navy, or if you don't have admirals or a navy, or like any focus trees that give you admirals, this is important because like your admirals will like start off. So like let me give you an example. If you like don't have admirals, you're gonna have to hire some, right? And you can like, these are your options. It's basically like the army thing, sort of. So let's say I promote this guy, right? He's gonna be a bottom of the barrel commander, right? This guy is buns, all right? See, like this guy is 0 stats, he's buns, right? And that's how all naval commanders start, right? Except ones that you start off with, right? So you're gonna be able to promote them. So they'll level up as they get more experience via, naval fighting or training or whatever it is. And these things sort of influence how some of them will, make them get better, higher, we'll prioritize them getting attack, some of them defense, some of them maneuvering, some of them will just give like XP gains, some of them will start to level off at 2, some of them will, make it cheaper to hire bosses or admirals, some of them will lower accident chances when you're in combat or training, right? So let's do this. This one here is important. The second one is a little more important because you're going to be able to sort of make things cheaper to produce, make them quicker to research, make them quicker to research like certain modules, submarine priorities, mine-laying research, or just like repairing ships, which is this one here. And this one again, this one's really important because it directly impacts your navy. So again, it's all really like, what type of player are you, right? I'm not going to give you any advice because I think I love when people give their their personal advice, but my personal take on it is play however the fuck you want to play, man. If you want to be someone who prioritizes surface raiders, you go ahead and do it. If you want to be somebody who who wants to use their navy like a sort of bite and go, then you can do that as well, right? I'm not going to give any advice. You do whatever the fuck you want to do, man. I'm not going to influence your decision. I'm just sort of here to let you know what this looks like. So here, Germany kind of is forced to be on this one because that's just where it starts off. But fleet and being, battle strike, and trade interdiction, these are kind of simple. So battle strike, fleet and being is basically like, it's going to prioritize your bigger ships. Your fleet is going to be built around those ships. You're going to get bonuses to your battleships, their organization. The priority is on the actual battleships, right? That is your priority. Your fleet is going to be revolving around battleships. Trade interjections, your destroyers, your cruisers, your submarines get bonuses. They're going to be harder to detect, easier or better to be organized, things like that. And base strike, it's fully built on the Air Force and carriers, right? Carriers are going to be the meat of your navy. Planes, that sort of thing is sort of going to be the meat of your nation. Aside from that, honestly, I think you're ready to go. Remember, click your admiral, make your thing, and all will be swell. I really hope you enjoyed this video, my beautiful, beautiful men and women. Mwah.